Hi guys, just going to throw this one in as a little bonus video this week. I got started last night putting this corner piece into our Kingswood ute door, and I thought, yep, pretty easy job, I'll do that as all behind the scenes. But once I got into it I thought, no, we really need to share this with everyone on YouTube. So what we've got to be aware of, we've put a pretty big piece into the corner of the door and we need everything to work. So what we've got to have is this edge down this side's got to be straight. We've got to be the same plane all the way through here, and we've got to keep this bottom edge straight as well. And it's a pretty tall order to get a patch cut that you're going to get everything exactly right all the way around. So you could wind up with a few little gaps that you've got to fill with weld, but then you're going to wind up with a bit of distortion from that. And the insides of the doors are not overly forgiving because where there's a frame inside, you can't get in to repair them. So what I've got done here is I've put a piece of scrap angle across the bottom and clamped that in place. And I've got a piece of steel beam or steel bar clamped on the back of this section in here, just so I don't get a dip in it here when it welds. And I've got that welded across there now. That area there is pretty well tidied up and sorted out. And we've got this straight down the edge here, and we've got this weld coming in here. You can find that when you're welding an area like this where it actually dips down and has another level down there, that once you get a weld in here, it's going to want to drop this top panel. That's because when we weld this top piece just in here, we're going to get a minute amount of shrinkage on there. We haven't welded this piece on the lower level down there yet, so naturally it's going to prop on that lower thing, and with leverage it's just going to curl this top weld in. Now the first step is to weld this piece down here, so we'll make sure we've got the two edges lined up perfectly. We can put a bead of weld across there, but because we know we're trying to lift this little spot in here, we can go pretty heavy with our weld in here and actually aim for a bit more shrinkage to lift it back up. The other complication is I sandblasted one side of this panel, so it naturally wanted to curl the edges. I went around it and I tapped all them back out flat before I started welding it, but some of the stresses in that panel have pulled out at the same time. So once we weld this area in here, if we've still got a low spot, then because there's no frame behind this section, I can grind it, I can work it with the hammer and dolly, and I'll lift that back up to where it should be. Now a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's just the inside of the door, it's not going to matter. And they're right in this instance just here, it's not going to affect this door. But if we had a problem like that over here, and we're in the sweep of where the arm travels that works the window regulator and pulls the glass up and down, I have seen doors repaired to the point where they're pulled in and they'll catch on the arm working the window. So just something to be aware of while you're working on the insides of the door frames, that you do get them back flat or close to flat. Naturally, any of these areas here that are behind the frame, if we get distortion in here, the frame's behind it, so there's nothing we can do about that apart from weld some tags on there or weld some studs on there and use the slide hammer to lift it up. And we can also pull a little bit of tension and just tap around the edge with our plenishing hammer, and we can bring the areas around it down, which will lift the low spot in the middle. Now I've got a little bit of a low spot just in there on that previous weld. That was fine until I put the weld on the edge here, because I'd already ground that and taken any woofles out of that and got it nice and flat again. But once the heat's run in here, it's relieved a bit of stress next to the weld and it's created a little low spot. Now that is minute, like because we've got an edge here where the door card's going to sit on that and we've got our upholstery in there, this is the leading edge of the door, so naturally you open the door out, you're sitting in the driver's seat, you can see the edge of the steel. If we have little lumps and bumps and gaps under there, sometimes they are visible behind the door card. So if you can't get the steel back flat, just run a bit of filler down these areas just to get this front edge of the door looking nice when the door's open. So there's a few tips on that, but while we're here we might have a quick look at our international door and just see what I've been doing with that. Now these ones only needed to be welded around the areas where they were pitted, and I've ground them back smooth and then just put a drill back through the hole and cleaned it up, and they're back to pretty much as new. There's still a little bit of a lump on the edge there. When I do my final nitpick around it, I'll grind those smooth and get it all back to looking factory again, but that's a really easy repair. This is the corner I made around here by just folding a right angle, put it through the stretcher, opened that edge up there to make it wrap around, and then I used a pair of ice grips to actually just roll that corner a bit, got it roughly in place, sat it over the rusted section, plenishing hammer, and just tapped all that down so it fitted nicely on there. And it's cut just below the corner. So the weld is more on this outside face than on the corner itself. So I've really only got to grind it up with the disc standing up straight around there, across the top there, and then just radius the edge, and it's going to look really nice. This patch in here, same thing around there. There's a plug weld supporting the frame inside, that's done. So that all that needs now is just to grind up, it's finished. Another one there that I just welded around and then ground that and drilled it. And here's one here that has been welded but not ground yet. So you can see where we're going with this. Weld up the pits, grind it back smooth, and then just poke a drill through to sort it out. This area of the frame had a big section that was missing, and the rust had grown right along the top edge of the overlap. Overlap lifted out the way, all been sandblasted, the rust is gone. I put 2 little passes of weld in there, filled the gap in, belt sander in there, smoothed it all over, and then I've crimped the frame back down. Perfect. So simple patch here, same deal as the corner, but I didn't have to stretch the edge. And the only other repair, I've left this corner open at the moment. I haven't folded the crimp down. There's a tiny little rust spot just come through the corner of the door, and I can see someone's actually tapped that corner before, and there's a little bit of plastic filler in the outside. So I'm suspicious that maybe before I bought the truck, so we're going back over 20 years now, someone's just tapped that to loosen up a bit of rust, let the door corner settle in a bit, and they've filled the outside of it, and it's taken that long for the rust to come through and put a bubble in the outside of it. It does have a little bit of rust treatment inside the door, so that was probably done at the same time. What I will do from here is I'll just cut the corner off the door, we'll make a replacement piece, and we'll make the crimp and fold it over, weld across there, it'll all be happy. So I'll give you an update on that once we get a bit closer to that. So that's pretty much it, where we are with our door updates. I'll bring you more as we progress. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe, we'll see you soon.